It's time for me to diagnose a new medical condition. Now, I'm going to call it COVID amnesia syndrome, and it seems to be spreading even faster than Omicron, especially among Labour Party members this past weekend. But suffering most acutely is Labour's frontbencher John Ashworth, who made an astonishing claim yesterday. Apparently, the Labour Party never wanted to close schools and devastate children's education throughout the pandemic.
I think, in hindsight, do you think school closures were a mistake?
We were always very clear that school closures had to be absolutely the last resort. We never wanted to see schools closed.
Your then Shadow Education Secretary, Rebecca Long-Bailey, was saying in May and June that the government must commit to not opening schools unless they meet 5 specific tests. She said that twice. She was very adamant that schools should stay closed unless they could prove otherwise.
You know, we always wanted schools to stay open where they could.
Yep, he's got that COVID amnesia syndrome bad, doesn't he? Let me remind Mr. Ashworth, of course, it wasn't just Rebecca Long-Bailey calling for schools to close. It was the Labour Party leader, Keir Starmer, himself. In January 2021, the leader of no opposition told Sky News and ITV News that school closures were an inevitable last resort and should be part of the national restrictions as soon as possible. And as ever, I've got the receipts.
I'm saying there should be national restrictions, and that inevitably will include school closures. They need to go together, and we need a plan, therefore, for working parents. We need a plan for children so that they can learn at home. We need a plan to get schools reopened again as soon as possible.
As the brilliant Daily Telegraph columnist Alison Pearson put it, the great disavowal has begun, and soon no one will have been in support of schools closing. But we will not let them forget. Baroness Claire Fox was right to tweet so blatant, as though we didn't have to listen to endless hectoring demands by Labour to keep schools closed in the name of safety. This really is a gross issue of gaslighting. But we heard them, so let's keep repeating. Lockdown denialism is dangerous. Dangerous because it opens the doors to us failing to learn from our mistakes. Schools must never close again, but they should never have closed in the first place. The Labour Party must justify why it made such damaging decisions and rule out such a policy from ever being implemented again, just like the new Tory Education Secretary Nadhim Zahawi has done.
I don't think he's had much choice.
I don't think he would have.
The truth is that the closure of schools, when I reflect on that, was a mistake, and I'm on record as saying that, and I will do everything in my power never again to close schools, and the Prime Minister absolutely agrees with me.
Making those in power own the mistakes of lockdown and ensuring they're not repeated is a huge priority of mine. So that's why I'm going to continue to diagnose new cases of COVID amnesia syndrome anywhere I find them. So be warned.